Hi and welcome. This video is going to be tailored towards beginners who are trying to get into fighting games. We're going to be going through terminology like neutral, punish, whiffing, mix-ups and conditioning. We're going to be explaining what our goals are and explaining concepts like rock, paper, scissors. In fighting games, our ultimate goal is one of two. Either to completely deplete the health bar of our opponent, winning the round and ultimately the fight, or being the last one standing with the most amount of health when the timer hits 0. Thankfully, we have a couple of ways to make our jobs easier in being the last one standing at the end of a round. Alright, let's talk about the first point. Neutral. What the heck even is that word? What does it mean? So I want you to imagine for a second those old school martial arts movies where two people are just staring at each other, they're walking in a circle, basically gauging each other's distance and controlling space. You know those situations I'm talking about where they're going in a circle? So something similar happens in these fighting games, where basically, ideally, both players are trying to gauge the distance between each other. They're thinking about who is going to take the first risk. Neutral basically means that nobody has an advantage. Nobody's in the ideal position to do any damage or to take any risks. They're in a neutral state of being. So, touching on the next point, punishment. Punish. Okay, so why are we punishing people? Who are we punishing? Who's in trouble? So in fighting games, you're not going to always make a sound decision. Both players are going to be making decisions on the fly and not every single one's going to be the correct one. When we make a mistake, we're most likely going to be entering a state of vulnerability. We're going to be open to a counterattack. When you, or your opponent, catches the other person making a mistake and hits them for it, it's called a punish. You're punishing them for their mistake. Kind of like that. Since we're talking about moves missing, I guess this is a good point to talk about this term as well. The next point being whiffing. All whiffing is literally just a move that missed. Think of a baseball bat that you swing in the air and it hits nothing. The sound that it makes, it whiffs. Same thing here. Alright, so this is kind of an extra little tidbit. So we've learned so far that missing attacks is called whiffing. And we've learned that punishing is when somebody makes a mistake and you or they hit the other person as a result because they were vulnerable. So if you were to combine both words, you whiff punish somebody. You're punishing them for whiffing in front of you. Now, for the next point after that, I want you to imagine just for a second, you can only block one part of your body at a time. In fighting games, these are reserved for either your top half or your lower half. In most fighting games, you have access to moves that are considered low moves, moves that attack the lower region of your opponent, and overheads, moves that attack over their head, strike them or knock them right on the noggin. You can defend against one of these two, not both. You can either choose to protect your legs or your head. Attempting to protect your legs is called blocking low. Literally just what the name suggests, you're blocking the lower section of your body. Blocking high is the opposite. You're blocking the higher part of your body. You're blocking against moves that strike towards the head. So to drive it home, if you choose to block high, your legs are exposed. And inversely, blocking low is great for protecting your legs, but you're leaving your noggin wide open. To help you remember, lows, clearly strike low. Overheads, strike over the head. In this case, we're going to start talking about mix-ups. First of all, what is a mix-up? Keeping it in layman's terms, you are trying to trick or confuse your opponent into making a mistake. You want him to think you're going to do this, when in truth, you're going to do that. Right now, I have Ryu set that he's going to protect himself against strikes that are going to hit his head. He is not going to block his feet. Hypothetically, if this was a player, if I were to jump in on him, it's pretty safe to assume that I'm going to try and knock him over the noggin. So he's smart to try and protect himself over the head. At lower levels, a very simple way to mix up your opponent, you can look at something like this. I am jumping in the air, he's expecting to block high, because he's expecting me to attack him high, but I do not do that. Instead, knowing that he thinks he knows what I'm gonna do, I use it against him. He thinks I'm gonna strike him on the head, and I do not. I go for his ankles. I go for a low. This concept in its entirety is all that mix-ups are. You think I'm going with A, but in truth I'm going with B. And because you were so focused on A, you were not prepared for B. He was prepared for the overhead. He was thinking I was going to knock him over the head, but he was wrong. I go for his legs. And vice versa. One of my favorite aspects about this concept is that it is all contingent on you and your opponent. There's no mechanics or anything, it's basically you understanding human psychology. So because of that, I'm going to suggest learning about conditioning. In a layman's term, conditioning is just doing something over and over, training the person to respond to something. In this case, Ryu is seeing me jump and strike his head over and over and over repeatedly. So every time he sees me jump, he's probably thinking, oh, here comes another overhead strike. When I need it most, I can go ahead and mess up his feet. By conditioning him to protect himself over the head, I can then use that against him because I conditioned him to think that every time I jump, I'm going with A, when in truth, I'm going for B. You can experiment with different ways to mix up your opponent by just playing the game. Another concept I want to talk about, rock, paper, scissors. Fighting games, especially modern ones, have a multitude of attacks and situations and concepts thrown at you all at once. To the naked eye, it's hard to discern what options or what powers you have in any given situation. As you get more fond and used to fighting games, you will then start to realize that every single situation, every single move, every single idea, if the game is made properly, has a counter. Without getting too much into the weeds, I'm just going to keep grabbing Ryu over and over. There's very little he can do. Keeping it very simple, to the untrained eye, you would just think this is like a glitch. This is unfortunate. This is just looping over and over and over. I even have it set up right now that he's gonna try and punch out of it. And if I time it right, he is not gonna have a chance to get out of it. So once again, reinforcing this idea of, well, I guess he's just stuck here. Unless I mess up, there's really no answer for him to get out of the situation. In rock, paper, scissors, that is not the case. As you embark on this journey with fighting games, you might be discouraged, you might feel like some things are just stacked against you or just flat out unfair. I ask that you have some patience and you look at things with an inquisitive mind, because a lot of things, if not everything that you're looking at, you may not know the answer to it yet, but there are answers for it, mechanically designed into the game. It might be daunting and haunting you in the beginning, but I want you guys to persevere, because some situations that look like they're impossible to resolve, trust me, there are answers out there. And that marks the end of this video. I hope this one was really helpful for you guys. Go ahead and click on this next one if you want some more tips and tricks. Once again, my name was Ockword. Go ahead and go punch somebody. Virtually.
Come on. Bring it. Where's my bed? Your footwork's sloppy, put me to sleep, man. Come. Listen. Come on. Damn.